This is LXBN TV, and I'm Colin O'Keefe. The Obama administration made steps last week to ensure free public access to federally funded research. Joining me today to break down the details is George McGuire, partner with Bond Schoeneck King and author on the Higher Education IP Law Report. George, give us the basics. Who does this impact, and when and how does it go into effect?
Thanks, Colin. Well, it directly impacts the funding agencies, the federal funding agencies that annually fund over $100 million in scientific research, but it's indirectly impacting and benefiting all researchers who will, assuming the intent of the policy is realized, have free access to the research work of others. Now, the agencies are given 6 months from the date of that policy memorandum that was released last Friday, in which to submit plans for implementing the public access. But there's no set time on how long it's going to take them to actually implement them. Now, the way it's going to benefit the researchers currently, researchers generally obtain copies of journal articles and basic research of others through three basic ways. They either have an institutional subscription to a journal or a journal conglomeration, and there's spiking costs with those kinds of journals and those types of conglomerations of journals. So there's more and more institutions cutting back on the amount they're making available to their researchers, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. Sometimes a researcher may contact another researcher in the field and get the results directly from that researcher, or sometimes they'll get it from a colleague or a friend who happens to have access to it. But there's no set policy currently that requires laying open the research that's generated through federal funds. So the policy is going to require the maximal public access to digital scientific data, defined in this memorandum as being the facts that are necessary to validate the research findings, including the data sets used to support scholarly publications. And that kind of information is really valuable. That's stuff that's not currently possible to obtain easily. So it's sometimes included as supplemental data, often in spreadsheets and other formats, but often it's not made available. So this could be one of the biggest impacts that the policy has. As I said before, in terms of the time, there's currently no set deadline. Each agency plan has to contain a timeline for implementation.
Interesting. So we do have a path laid out, but not necessarily a finish line in sight. So second, just how big of an impact do you see this having on the academic community? What impact will this have on higher education?
Sure. Yeah. Well, my understanding would be that the researchers, academic and otherwise, will greatly improve their efficiencies and their protocols that they're using to perform their research, among other things, as a result of having this free access to the research results of others. It's going to enrich the public domain of research results, so less time is going to be spent reinventing the wheel, so to speak, searching for information about a particular problem, etc. Now, there's an embargo period recommended in the policy of 12 months. In other words, it's 12 months from the time the research is done that it has to be laid open. There is a process that's outlined in the policy, however, that's going to allow stakeholders, which would be academic researchers, for instance, to seek that this period be shortened if a particular field of study requires it. And now the policy is going to give researchers access to data and information that's generally locked behind expensive paywalls and will provide all those benefits that I just mentioned. And so it's a step in the right direction, no question about it, but that 12-month embargo period might prove too long. So 12 months, most researchers may have either obtained the article through some other means, or the article itself is either obsolete after that length of time or not as relevant. Now, I've got a little graph here from a particular biological journal If I hold it up to the screen here, perhaps you can see it. It's a logarithmic scale, and it shows the number of accesses of this particular publicly available biological data. And you can see in the first couple of months, there's an awful lot, 10 to the third power, so 1,000 accesses typically. And as that time frame increases down to 12 months, it's almost never accessed any longer. So you can see the bulk of publicly available works are generally accessed within the first few months of the work becoming publicly available. So this 12-month embargo period may ultimately prove to be a bit too long.
Once again, that was George McGuire of Bond Schoeneck King. For more of his commentary on this issue, be sure to visit higherediplaw.com. And as always, visit us at lxbn.com for more video interviews from LXBN TV, along with curated commentary from the LexBlog Network's more than 8,000 lawyers. Thanks for joining us, George.
Very good. Thank you, Colin.